So, and there is so much to learn from this book, as Sharoo was mentioning. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I will send you, if you're interested. I'll send you the
Yeah, yeah.
ebook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I think Sharoo, I think we can
Yes.
start.
Yes. We'll
Okay.
start.
So,
Whosoever
yeah,
wants
I
to
will.
join, they
Yeah. So, friends, today is one more amazing day. We have our wonderful Master Sharoo, who is connecting with us from India, and she will be telling about the significance of why we celebrate Navaratri, the spiritual significance. We all know that we have been, it's a celebration. We dance, we do fasting, but what is it that these Navaratris are conveying? So, Sharu will be taking us to the real meaning of celebration of Navaratri. So, Sharu, please welcome and please enlighten us with your talk. I'm very much looking forward.
yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in today. And thank you so much for being here with me on this auspicious day. Although all the days are auspicious, but these are the 9 days which are full of energy. There's so much of divinity inside of it. And so I just thought that, yeah, okay, whatever I have with me, I should share with all of you so that you understand that why do we celebrate this festival, why do we celebrate these 9 days, the beautiful 9 days that we have. So let's begin. Okay, so when we talk about Navaratri, so what is the meaning of Navaratri? So Navaratri means 9 nights. That is, Nav means 9 and Ratri means nights. So when we talk about the 9 nights, these 9 nights are basically celebrating the feminine aspect of the divine. You might be aware that the divine has the masculine and the feminine aspect. We also have the masculine and the feminine aspect. But these 9 days are specially dedicated to the feminine aspect of the divine. And it is also said that these days are also celebrated. Actually, these are the celebrations of different 9 aspects of the goddess, which is also known as Navadurga. So we celebrate the different aspects. Why night? Why do we call it Ratri? Why do we call it a night? You always have seen that when we are sleeping, we move inwards, we turn inwards. And when we wake up, when we get up in the morning, we are full of hope, full of happiness. There is so much of rejuvenation, there is so much of renewal as far as we are concerned. There's so much of solutions. We get the solutions also when we wake up in the morning that okay, there was a problem at night, but now in the morning we have got a solution as well. So what happens in the Navaratri? These 9 nights not only gives you a hope to live, a happiness, a contentment, but it also actually awakens 64 impulses that we have in our body, the spiritual 64 impulses that we have with us. And when they get activated, not only the earthly things that we have or the spiritual benefits that the universe has decided for us, it keeps coming to us. So it activates the 64 impulses that we have. So when we talk about these 9 nights, when we talk about Navaratri, it actually rekindles our divine impulses that we have within us. And it celebrates the innermost depths of our lives. When we worship the deities, whenever we worship these 9 goddesses that we worship in these 9 consequent days, what happens is it is not just the worshipping of the goddess that is happening. Actually, we are trying to bring these aspect of the Mother Divine into our lives by invoking these aspects externally. We are trying to invite them in our lives. Okay, so there is another aspect to it. When we talk about Navaratri, there's another aspect. So when we talk about our lives, there are 3 qualities, which we say the three basic qualities of existence. One is tamas, which means inertia. Then another is rajas, which means action and passion. And then there is the third one, which is called sattva. Sattva means merging. Sattva means melting. And all these three basic qualities of existence are actually represented by three celestial bodies. That is, when we talk about tamas, it is being represented by the Mother Earth. When we talk about rajas, it is being represented by the sun. And when we talk about sattva, it is being represented by the moon. So we, as the human beings, when we start invoking these goddesses, what happens is, whosoever is aspiring for power, whosoever is aspiring for strength, that person will actually worship that aspect of the divine in these 9 nights, which is also known as Ma Kali, which brings the tamas aspect, which is also being an aspect, which is also an aspect of Mother Earth, which is represented by Mother Earth. The person who is so much into the wealth, who wants to enjoy the life, who wants to enjoy life passionately, the one who wants to actually enjoy life, each and every moment of life, and the materialistic pleasure as well, that person will aspire that form which is referred to as Ma Lakshmi, or which is represented by sun. And the third is those who are going to aspire for knowledge, for knowingness, for transcendence. These are the people who are going to aspire for the third divine quality of the mother, which is also known as Saraswati, which is also represented by the moon. So now, I hope there is no confusion. There is nothing that I'm confusing you in any whichever way. Anything, any doubts you have, please, you can just let me know so that I can just make you understand again and then move forward. Because I'm trying to be as descriptive as possible. I'm trying that you should understand the significance of Navaratri as deeply as possible. So these are the two aspects which I have told you, that what are the two aspects of Navaratri, and what is basically why do we celebrate this beautiful festival with a lot of fasting, with a lot of meditation, because lot of energies are there in these 9 days, which we have to bring internally within us. Now, let's talk about the goddesses. There are 9 different goddesses whom we celebrate in each and every day of these 9 nights. So now we are going to understand the significance of each and every aspect of the mother, each and every aspect of that goddess, each and every aspect that she is telling us to bring in our lives. So the first mother, the first goddess, the first one, that the first day of Navratri, we worship Ma Shailputri. Now, who is Ma Shailputri? What is the meaning of Shail? Shail means, you can say the Shail means a mountain. Shail means extraordinary or rising beyond the heights. And when we talk about Ma Shailputri, what she is saying that on this first day of Navaratri, you have to actually heighten the higher consciousness, the state of your own consciousness. You have to actually, you can say that you have to get into that state of consciousness on the first day. And when we do that, when we invoke this Devi on that day, slowly and gradually, what happens is the energy starts surging, it starts increasing on the first day. Why? Because unless and until the energy is at peak, because Shail means peak, Shail means the peak of the mountain. So what she is trying to tell you, that unless and until your energy is at its peak, you will not be able to understand what the energy is. For example, I will just give you a very simple example. We see the kids, small kids. What do? Whenever they are with one energy, they are always engrossed in one energy. They don't want to get out of that energy for some time till they reach its peak. For example, if they're happy, they will be 100% happy. If they are angry, they will be 100% angry. And after that, they will drop down that energy. So on the first day, when we are on that state of consciousness, when we are on the highest state of the consciousness, we start understanding all the energies that are there within us. So on the first day of Mashel Putri, we start bringing that energy. We start actually, embracing those energies in our life. The second day, is being celebrated as the day of Ma Brahmacharini. What is the meaning of Brahma? When we say Brahma, Brahma means there is something that has no end and no beginning, the truth. So when we are invoking the goddess Ma Brahmacharini, that means that the goddess is telling us to actually know the truth of who we are, truth of what we have to be, the truth of the purpose that we have. And we have to work on that truth on the second day onwards. So she's trying to tell us to bring that truth inside of us, the truth of oneness, the truth that we are the speck of the same consciousness, but with a different expression. That is the truth of compassion, the truth of empathy, the truth of the oneness, that whosoever is standing in front of us is the same who I am as. So that is the wisdom of Ma Brahmacharini, who always wants that this truth of oneness be always there within us on the second day. Now, the third day is Ma Chandraghanta. So now, what is the meaning of Chandra? Chandra means moon. And when we talk about moon, here on the third day, what is the goddess doing? Why do we invoke this goddess? We invoke Ma Chandraghanta. It's because she now activates the lunar side of our brain, that is the left side of the brain. That is because Chandra is moon, moon is the lunar, the left side of our brain, which is related to the intuition, which is related to the emotion. And when we talk about Ghanta is the bell, it means the bell. Bell always makes one constant sound. It does not make different sounds. So what is the goddess saying? The goddess is telling us that your mind, which is restless, your mind, which is with so much of thoughts, there's so many thoughts with your mind. You have to bring that focus of your mind inside of yourself. You have to bring that focus to your breath. You have to bring that focus here to your own self. Then only will you be able to achieve what you have to achieve. So on the third day of Navaratri, the goddess activates a lunar aspect of the brain, the lunar side, the emotions, the feelings. And then she tells us to bring that focus on that energy which is within us. Then comes the fourth day. The fourth day is Ma Kushmanda. Now, what is the meaning of Kushmanda? Ku means little. Ushma means energy, prana. Ushma means life force. And Anda means the egg. So when we talk about Ma Kushmanda, who's on the fourth day, she is telling us that we are born from one cosmic egg, which was being manifested by this infinite energy called Ma, the Devi. And then what she does on the fourth day is she activates the solar side of our brain that is here, that is the sun. That is the right side of the brain. So what are we doing? Can you just see? Can you just see the connection? The first day we are, invoking the high state of the consciousness. And after that, slowly and gradually, we are then knowing about our truth through that energy. Then third day, we are actually activating our lunar side. The fourth day, we are activating our solar side. Now comes the fifth day. So what is going to happen on the fifth day? Why do we invoke the goddesses on the fifth day? And who's the goddess that we invoke? The fifth day is for the goddess or Ma Skandamata. Skand means flowing freely. So what she is trying to tell us is that you have achieved that state of consciousness. You have got that energy. You have activated your lunar and solar part of the brain. Now it is time for you to accept everything and flow freely with the universe, whatever the universe is going to give you. So you have to flow freely with the universe. You don't have to push anything. You don't have to try hard for anything. You just have to flow freely. She is also, when we talk about this on this Devi, on this day, the Devi also represents, you can say, the confluence of Ichha Shakti, that is the power of intention, and the Jnana Shakti, the power of knowledge, and the Kriya Shakti, the power of righteous action. So when we talk about the confluences, because what happens is when the Shiva Tattva merges into these three powers, that is the Ichha Shakti, the Jnana Shakti, and the Kriya Shakti, that is the power of intention, the power of righteous action, the power of knowledge. When Shiva Tattva merges into these three, then what comes out of it is Skanda. That is what Ma Skandamata is all about. To confluence, to bring all these three together, that is the Ichha Shakti, the Kriya Shakti, and the Jnana Shakti. So we have to bring these three powers together, then only will we be able to freely flow with the universe. That is the fifth day of the Navaratri. Then comes the sixth day of Navaratri. So sixth day is for Ma Katyayani. Ma Katyayani, if we talk about her, so she's that form of the Mother Divine which is assumed to annihilate the demonic figures or the demonic forces in the universe. Ma Katyayani is believed to actually kill Mahishasura, the evil. Mahishasura was being killed by Ma Katyayani. So by that, she tells us in order to restore the balance, she had to do that. So now when we invoke her on the sixth day, that is telling us that we have to actually take care of everything that is inside of us, which are the enemies, which are the foes that are inside of us, the inner foes or inner enemies that we have inside of us. We have to take care of those emotions that are actually the obstacles in the path of our evolution. So when we are able to do that, everything will start falling into places. So Ma Katyayani is telling us to not to be scared of what we have inside, but to actually face them, face all the fears, face everything, address them, and then kill them. Means address them and release them. Let them go. Don't stick to it, because if we do that, then the evolution will not be there. So that is the sixth day of Navaratri, where Ma Katyayani is telling us to invoke that side of hers. And she's telling us to welcome that aspect of hers in our lives. Then comes seventh, Ma Kalaratri. When we talk about Kalaratri, what is Kalaratri? Kalaratri is the dark night. Why do we say that? Why do we call her Kalaratri? It's because after having and achieving so much, after killing our foes which are there inside of us, after addressing them, after letting them go and releasing them, now what is happening is, the night is there, the night which is calm, which is comfort. Because you already know the Mother Nature has two kind of aspects. One is very terrifying. It's you can say very destructive. The other aspect of Mother Nature is what? That she is very beautiful, she is very serene. So, right now, on this day, on the seventh day, when we are invoking Ma Kalaratri, so what we are doing is we are putting that dark night into rest. That rest, that solace, that comfort that we have been asking for, now it is going to come into our lives. We are invoking that part of Ma, that Ma who is also going to give us so much of solace and comfort in our lives. Now this paves path to the eighth day. Eighth day is for Ma Mahagauri. Who is Gauri? What is Gauri? What is the meaning of Gauri? Gauri means light. So when we see that we have taken care and taken care of our enemies, the miseries and everything, so everything is over. The dark night is over. Now what is coming on the seventh day, sorry, the eighth day, what is coming is the light. It is a new beginning. It is a new hope. It is the light that we are bringing, in our lives. It is a beautiful light that now we are able to see, because once we have understood our energies, once we have understood where we have to be, once we have understood the oneness, once we have activated the solar and the lunar aspect of our lives, once we have taken care of our inner enemies, once we have actually taken care of the miseries that we are going through in our lives. So what Ma is saying, that miseries are over. There's only light in your life. And now the last day, that is the ninth day, it is for Ma Siddhidatri. What is Siddhidatri? Who is Siddhidatri? When we talk about Siddhi, Siddhi means perfection. And Datri means the one who gives that perfection. So when Ma has bestowed upon us all the blessings, everything what we are asking for, on the ninth day, she gives us everything with perfection. Everything that is perfect, everything that you feel that these are impossible to achieve, you get that. You start getting it, because that is a perfection. That is something that she wants to give you. And on the ninth day, you are invoking that perfect life in your life, that perfect life which you have picturized for so long. Moreover, she also takes our attention to another aspect, which is also known as, she takes us beyond the reasoning logical mind, and tells us to explore the realm which is beyond any time and space. So now on the ninth day, she is trying to tell that you have everything now. Now get inside of yourself, sit, introvert, just try to introspect and try to explore that realm which is beyond any time and space. That is something that you're supposed to do. That is something why you are here for. So that is the ninth day of Navaratri, where she is telling us to bring this inside of us, the perfect life that we as human beings have always thought of. So this is the significance of Navaratri and the goddesses whom we worship every time. Because this is the time when you actually have to bring these energies into your life, these feminine energy, because it's this time the feminine energy is at its peak in these 9 days. So this was something that I wanted to share with all of you. And Madhu, thank you so much for giving me this space where I could actually share what I had to share about Navaratri. So yeah, thank you. Thank you. So now
Thank you.
after this, there will be a guided meditation also, where we'll be invoking the angels and the Mother Goddess. So we are going to do that as well.
Yes, yes, Master Sharu. Yeah, you can. Afterwards, can we take some questions if there is any? Yeah, after the
Yes, yes, yes.
meditation? Yes,
Yes,
perfect.
of course. Yes, of course.
Yes,
Yes.
wonderful. Yes.
Okay, so we are going to start with the meditation. So it's going to be a guided one. So just let me know whether the music is audible and my voice is audible. And if at all, because this is a guided one, if at all your soul feels, if you feel intuitively that you want to be with me, then you be with my voice. But if you feel that the music is taking you somewhere else and you want to go somewhere else, then please go there. It's okay. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to say anything. Let it flow. Let you just go where you want to. So this is what my request is. So I'm going to just switch on the music now, and kindly tell me whether my voice along with the music is audible or not. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Madhu. Yeah, can you hear the music, or is the music is loud?
Yes. No, no, no.
Yes,
It's perfect, Sharu.
it's perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's just drink a little bit of water if you want to. Just softly close and rest your beautiful eyes and begin to move inward. Whilst observing your inner touch of your spiritual connection, begin to connect to the flow of your breath. Your breath is your guide, so encourage it to flow freely. It is the key to your connection with the wider aspects of the universal consciousness. Connect to the space within you. Connect to the space around you. Connect to your spirit now. And as you exhale completely, feel it as a release of any doubt or tension, a release of holding on too tightly, release of any concerns. Let go of that now. In this moment, you are safe. All is just as it should be. Now, let your inner vision watch your inner body and its spirit to gradually switch on like a light of spiritual connection and communication. See your light affect your whole body now. Observe this light everywhere. Observe it becoming stronger and stronger with each passing moment. Now exhale, release, let go, and smile. The communication is on. Now you see an ocean, a beautiful ocean which has the emerald green water. Over the ocean, you see the form of the goddess Durga appearing as if rising from the waves. She is tall and slender, with golden skin and long lustrous hair. Her rosy pink sari falls over her perfect body. As you watch, she glides over the water and steps on to the pearly beach. As she walks towards you and smiles, you get a feeling of love and compassion covering your entire being. She is looking into you with infinite love. Just be there with her and be with this truth of this divine spirit. Beware of any sensations or light that flashes in the cozy darkness behind your closed eyes. This is the light of the goddess, the rose and gold light of the goddess, which is with you. Keep flowing in your connection with this golden light. Simply flow now. Now, with your pure spirit, invite this golden light to come to you, the light of the Mother Divine. Let that light softly envelop you now. Let it wrap you. Let it wrap you around your whole physical, mental, and spiritual being, softening you, holding you, protecting you. as you gently mingle in the soothing sensation of being held, become aware of any discomfort or worry that is present within you. Do not judge these worries. Do not attach to them either. Just notice them. Just allow them to be. The mother sees them clearly, and she is using this beautiful rose golden light to cleanse them now. Feel each breath in as a connection to this beautiful light, and feel each breath out, cleansing yourself of any unwanted energy within you. The light of the Mother Divine is shielding you and protecting you with her beautiful, loving light. Allow your awareness to travel out of your body into the space around it, a little higher and a little higher, past the clouds and past the stars, way up into the space beyond that. In that space, you're breathing and you're floating as your spirit softens and your awareness expands. The Mother releases you from any limitations, removing the negative energy blockages, soothing any pain, fear, and worry, reminding you that now and always, when you call upon her, she will always come. Be there a moment more expanding in this vast space and beyond. Allow yourself to fully feel this protection in each breath that you take. With your out breath, feel the release and the renewal that is taking place. Visualize this rose golden light to shine onto you now. The light of power beaming out and coming straight to your heart. Feel this powerful transmission, this light of love and protection charging your being and the space you are in. Just feel it. See your chakras begin to shine brighter. Any energy debris within the chakras begin to dissolve in this light. Any cords and attachments are simply melting away in her power. Your body begins to feel clearer and lighter. New pathways for new connections open up. Feeling empowered. Feel free. Feel open to truth and grace. Feel the miracle occur within right now. Feel your energy being wrapped up and surrounded in her love. You're so connected with this divine energy. You're so connected with the Mother Divine that you can speak to her. Simply let the message you need to hear today flow. Take this moment now. This connection is real. This connection is powerful. Make an intention to hold on to the received alignment beyond this meditation, and know that whenever you need her, she will be there. When you will see the flashes of this rose and golden light, you will know that she is near. She is with you, shielding you with her love and guiding you towards the truth of the divine which resides within you and all around you. Now, with each breath that you take, inhale a little deeper and exhale to begin to come back. Come back to your body and to your surroundings. Become aware of any physical sensations. Be aware of the touch of the air. deeper, and with an exhale, release the light and return to stillness. Allow your face to soften into a smile, and knowing that she is with you now, and whenever you need her, she will come to you. Carry this feeling of love with you, and if you want, and if you feel, you can gently open your eyes whenever you want to. Come back to this physical world, to this physical awareness. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Thank you so much, Sharu. Wow. Wow. It was very, very deep. And the wisdom you have shared before about every day we was really, really wonderful. No matter if we are, we have the knowledge about Navaratri or not. I mean, there are our friends from Egypt also who have joined, but the real significance, what you have explained, Sharu, that is more important, that to be taken and to be implemented. So it is really, really wonderful, and the meditation was out of the world. As you have mentioned, you took us to the space and you made us meet the Devi. Wow, what a beautiful, beautiful, like the expression and the way you brought the Devi into the form. Wow, words fell short to explain. Thank you so much, Sharu. And I am so, so grateful. I cannot put in words how much happy I am. Thank you, Sharu. Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much. Thank you so much. Your words really mean a lot to me, Madhu Ma'am, because it's lovely, because the words are pouring from you. So thank you so much. Thank you.
thank you, Sharu. And friends, if there is anybody who wants to share your experience and who wants to talk to Sharu, please unmute yourself and you can go ahead. I
Thank you,
think,
Sarah. Thank
yes,
you.
Ram, go ahead. Yeah,
Thanks a lot, Sharu. That was wonderful meditation.
Thank you, Ram
I
sir.
really
Thank you.
enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the journey and the energies. So thanks a lot. And I also learned a lot from the wisdom sharing you have shared at the beginning. So thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so happy and I'm feeling so blessed today because there's so many energies that I can feel right now because the time I started taking the sessions, I feel the both masculine and the feminine energies with me sitting here, and I'm so glad that all of you could actually feel those vibrations there with you as well. So I'm so thankful and grateful to that realm and to those divine energies who were there with me throughout the session. I'm so grateful and thankful to joined me here in this session. Thank you, Ram sir and Madhu ma'am, for giving me such a beautiful opportunity. Thank you. Shukriya. Thank you so much.
We should thank you, Sharu. We should thank you for your time and the wisdom you have shared. And many of our friends here are writing in the chat box. They're expressing their gratitude towards you. And wonderful, wonderful. We want more of your sessions, Sharu. The meditation you take us is amazing. It's as if like the angel. I see always you as an angel. So thank you, friends. For the ones who understand Hindi, recently our Sharu had done a wonderful angel meditation. So I'll be putting it in the chat box. Please watch it and please meditate with it. It is indeed a very powerful meditation. She take us to meet these angels. Amazing friends. So please do that. And anybody else friends wants to share? And our friends from YouTube also express their gratitude, Sharo.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Meena. Thank you, Mrinalini. Thank you, Bala. Thank you, everyone. It's such a wonderful, group session because there's so much of group consciousness in there. And when we meditate in a group consciousness, the energy is, more than anything you can ever imagine or fathom. So I'm so grateful to each one of you who's watching me and listening to me. Thank you for giving your loving energies to me. Thank you for giving your blessings and love. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Raman. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again, Sharu. And
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Sharu.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Good night and good evening and good mornings and good afternoons, whatever. So start the day or end the day with the beautiful smile on your face and just keep this intent that you have to spread and you are here to spread love and light to each one of you. So thank you so much. Thank you, Ram sir. Thank you, Madhu ma'am. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you who have joined me here. Thank you so much. Shukriya,
Thank
shukriya.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Sharu. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, friends, that was indeed a wonderful session. We have got lots of energies from this session. So now today it is hard for me to say this that today is the last day of our wonderful book, The Untold Story of Sita. I wish that it could have continued forever and ever. And I'll be reading it now. And please, it might take a little bit long today because as it is the last chapter. So just close your eyes and just let us go back to the times of Mata Sita. So, friends, as yesterday we have heard about the fulfillment of Sita's work, today we will be knowing Soma's departure. After we had been on the road for several hours, my mother and I stopped for rest and refreshment. I stepped down from the chariot and walked over to a nearby tree and sat beneath it. Drawing my knees up, I wrapped my arms around them and rested my head on my knees. My mother and I had hardly spoken since we had started on the journey. My mother came and sat beside me and offered me water and fruit. I shook my head, indicating that I was not hungry. My mind drifted off. As we had ridden further from the hermitage, a memory had returned to me, a memory of standing before Sri Ram when I was a young child. I remembered staring up into his face. I remembered his smile and his kind eyes returning my look. His eyes of such stillness and depth, eyes that had been with me since childhood, providing me comfort in the night and in the times of distress. I tried to remember more, but I couldn't. All I could recall were the eyes and the smile. After meeting Soma and hearing her stories, suddenly this memory had become very personal. I had seen Sri Ram. He had held my young face between his hands and stared into my eyes. He had spoken to me. A bond had been formed, a bond that would be eternal. I had this memory to hold on to. Suddenly, I lifted my head and turned to my mother. Do you remember that day when I was a child and Maharaja Ram came to our home? Of course, she smiled. How could I forget that day? He spoke some words about me, didn't he? She nodded. I remember his smile, his face, his incredible eyes, but I don't remember his words. What did he say, Ma? I asked innocently. She looked away. I asked again, but still she didn't respond. Ma, why are you silent? She turned to look at me. It is better, Anasuya, that you ask this question of your father. But why? She didn't answer. Don't I have a right to know what our Maharaja said about me? I looked inquiringly at her, not understanding her silence. After several more minutes, she replied quietly, You do, and I will tell you everything. She turned her face away and closed her eyes as she spoke, as if to recapture that day. I was standing in the doorway while our Maharaja was discussing some administrative matter with your father. It was the first time he had come to our home. It was a great honor. It was his custom to visit the homes of the citizens so that he could hear their concerns personally. But the Maharaja was getting on in age, and such visits had become less frequent. I could not restrain myself from trying to come close to our Maharaja, whom we so loved and revered, and thus I stood in the doorway, hoping your father would not mind. You were curious, peering into the room, holding on to my leg, half hiding your face within the folds of my clothing. Suddenly, our Maharaja noticed you and, in such a sweet voice, invited us to come forward. My heart pounded at that thought that I could approach him. Your father introduced us. He inquired about you, and your father said that you were our youngest child and only daughter. He asked you to come closer. Shyly, you inched forward until you stood before him. Your father explained how, whenever we passed the palace when you were very young, you would point to the palace and call out, Mata. One time, you even escaped his arms and ran into the palace, saying you wanted to see Mata. When he caught and restrained you, you wept. Maharaja Ram smiled. Then, holding your face between his hands, he looked deeply into your eyes. His smile broadened, and he said quietly, almost to himself, She was one of the servants who came with Sita from Mithila. She didn't live to see our return. He was quiet for a few minutes and then added in the most gentle voice, She loved Sita very much. After that, he turned to your father and said, You must send her to the Gurukulam, now established for young girls. Sita would want that. Then, turning again to you, he said, I will give you a blessing, child. Placing his hand upon your head, he closed his eyes and said, There will always be someone to bring you back, to remind you of where you came from in all of your future lives. This is what took place that day. Why did you not tell me this before? I asked in a voice filled with emotion, thinking there were so many questions I could have asked Soma had I known this earlier. Your father did not want you to know that you had been a servant. He did not want you to think of yourself in this way. He saw that you had a tendency toward this. Is there anything nobler than serving our Maharani or Maharaja? I exclaimed in disbelief. Nothing could make me happier than to know our Maharani had once been my Mata, just as she was Soma's. Had I known this, I could have asked Soma about my past. I could have asked so many questions. My voice trailed off. I recognized that I had never stopped thinking of myself as a servant. I remembered how in childhood I had loved to serve my parents and was happiest when I was invisible, unseen, performing the simplest task in the household. My mother shook her head. I'm ashamed to say what I just told you, but it is how your father felt and still feels. We will go back to visit Soma, I promise you. My mother took my hand and said, let us not share this conversation with your father. I nodded. My mind was racing as I now recalled Soma's last words to me. She had told me as much, but now what she had spoken was confirmed by Sri Ram himself. I had no memory of the past or of the exchange between Sri Ram and my father. My only memory was his eyes, eyes that would never leave me. I could not forgive my father for having kept from me Maharaja's Ram's great blessing and his revelations about my past. Yet, in order to honor my mother's request, I could not discuss it with him. And so a distance developed between us. He was pleased that I agreed to the marriage and did not take note of my silence in his presence. My mind was far away, and I mentally reviewed again and again the stories we had heard from Soma in the hopes of not forgetting a single word. I continued with my household duties, physically engaged but mentally absent. When one day my father told me I was soon to be meet my future husband, I nodded, not thinking much of it. A few days later, after finishing my chores, one of the household servants accompanied me on my walk down to my favorite spot at the river. I sat there watching the rushing water, thinking back to the stories Soma had told us. Lost in thought, I suddenly became aware of another presence. Turning, I found a young man standing not far away, looking at me. Seeing that I had noticed him, he introduced himself. I am Ajit, he said in a nervous voice, and I assume you are Anasuya. I went to call upon you at your home, but was told you were here by the river. I nodded, turning my face away. My heart was pounding. I had never been in such a situation before, alone in the presence of a young man who was not my relative. This was the young man I was destined to marry. May I join you? He asked. I nodded, still not daring to turn my face to him. You have found my favorite spot, he said. This is where I often come to reflect, to sit with the river. I didn't answer. He continued to make conversation. I could hear the tremble in his voice and began to feel badly for him. But I was tongue tied and could not respond. After speaking for some minutes, he fell silent. I gathered the courage to turn towards him. His eyes were on the river, so I could examine him without him noticing. He was a good looking young man, nothing extraordinary, but fine featured, and he had a kindly expression on his face that caught my attention. The afternoon sun was pouring down, but we were spared its heat by the shade of some trees. Suddenly, I noticed that he was staring at a furry animal who seemed to be struggling by the side of the river. That animal might be hurt. I must go to it, he murmured. I watched him as he went over to the animal, who was too injured to run away. He returned and placed the animal on his lap and began to rub its leg. A large bird may have attacked his leg, but I think he will be all right, he said caringly. Then, removing a silver pendant that hung around his neck, he placed it on the animal's leg and closed his eyes for a few minutes, whispering, Mata's love will heal you. Opening his eyes, he smiled as he saw the animal squirm in an attempt to free itself. Release the animal, he said. Releasing the animal, he said. There now, you may go on your way. He watched as the animal limped off. I continued to stare at the pendant, which he had again placed around his neck. That pendant you are wearing, where did you get it? I asked in a shy voice for the first time venturing to speak. My grandmother gave it to me before she died. I believe it has healing power. How did your grandmother come by the pendant? I asked with a new interest in him. There is a long story behind this pendant. I would like to hear it. Well, you might not believe this, but it was given to her by the Maharani herself when she returned from the exile. She said that her mother had given it to her when she left Mithila. My mouth dropped open at these words. That was Mata Sita's pendant. You call her Mata as well? He asked with a slight laugh. That is what my grandmother called our Maharani. She had so much love for her. I didn't know why I called Maharani Sita Mata at that moment. I had never done so before, but the word slipped from my mouth, and from that moment forward, that was the only word I used when referring to her. As I said, it is a long story. You see, when Raja Ram and Rajkumari Sita first rode into Ayodhya after their marriage, the whole city came out to see them. My grandmother was among that crowd, but what she saw was different from what the others saw. She didn't see a Rani, she saw a great Devi with a great light emanating from her. She saw Rajakumari Sita for who she truly is. And so, when they were forced into exile for some months later, she realized that there was a far greater purpose to the exile, and it was not as people thought. She often said to me that the exile would not have happened unless Raja Ram and Rajkumari Sita deemed it necessary for their work. She also realized the dangers that they would encounter, and so she began going down to the river before dawn to offer prayers and chants for them, especially for Rajkumari Sita's safety and well being and for the success of their mission. That was your grandmother? I exclaimed, interrupting him. Now I was piecing together the story, remembering what Soma had told us. He nodded. You know about her? He asked in a surprised tone. I nodded in amazement. Please continue, I said. Throughout the 14 years, she didn't miss a morning. Through rain and thunder, sickness, and whatever difficulty she was facing, she went to the river to offer her prayers. I often wonder what motivated her so. She was a relatively poor woman with not much knowledge of the world, but she was a pure soul, the essence of God goodness. She would never turn away a person in need. She always extended herself to help, never considering her own needs. That is how I remember her. Her husband had died not long after their marriage, and she was raising her son alone, her only child, my father. She struggled, but still she went down to the river every day before dawn, before the day's work began. Soon other women joined her, and by the end there were many who came, the women of Ayodhya. He fell silent after saying these words about his grandmother. I was now looking directly at him and saw clouds of emotion settle on his face. My heart went out to him. You must have loved her very much, your grandmother. He nodded. His voice displayed a slight tremble when he began speaking again. She had a great influence on me, and even though she died when I was quite young, I remember her well. I remember her by her deeds, not her words, as she spoke little, but her life was an example to me. Can you tell me how your grandmother came by this pendant? After the return from the exile, my grandmother took quite ill. My father was seeking some medicines for her when Rajkumari Sita happened to be passing in her chariot. When she saw my father, she quickly got down from the chariot and took him to where the plant medicines could be found along the riverside. She then asked that my grandmother come to see her when she was well enough. After her recovery, my grandmother tried several times to see Rajkumari Sita, but the guards wouldn't let her through. One day, Rajkumari Sita and her attendant visited my grandmother in disguise. It was then that Rajkumari Sita told my grandmother how she knew of her prayers and the prayers of the women of Ayodhya and how these prayers had protected her during her captivity in Lanka. Then, to show her appreciation, she took off this pendant and placed it around my grandmother's neck. It was the most precious thing she owned, but she said there was no way to express gratitude for the service my grandmother had rendered. You can imagine what this meant to my grandmother, who never wanted any recognition or acknowledgement for what she had done. Then Rajkumari Sita told her that we don't know the effects of our prayers. They can have far greater impact that we can imagine. This is something my grandmother repeated to me again and again. So that was your grandmother, I murmured in disbelief. He nodded. My mother died when I was young, and so my grandmother cared for me during my early years. Up until that time, my father had been struggling, but after that visit of the Maharani, success came to him in everything he did. He became quite wealthy, but this never mattered to my grandmother. She never changed her way of life. My father eventually married again, and we moved into a much larger home. But she refused to shift. She said she always wanted to live as our Rani did. I could not believe what I was hearing. We were quiet for some time. I felt quite comfortable with him now, as if we were old friends, and so the silence was not an awkward one. I was even enjoying the space between words, the quiet that had now come between us. I was reflecting on Soma's last words to me and asked, "You like animals, don't you?" His whole face beamed as he exclaimed, "That is an understatement. If I could, I would spend all my time with them, caring for them. But my father has other intentions for me." He sighed. Soma's voice rang within me, informing me that the man I was to marry had looked after the animals in Maharaja Janaka's household, and that he had wanted to marry me, but my father would not permit it. Now, my father in this life was arranging it. How strange, I thought, that what couldn't be in that life was coming to be in this. What is that your father wants for you? To go into administration. That is what they have planned, our fathers. It is not what I want, but it is what I will do. It was then that Mata's words in the vision came back to me about building a new society. Perhaps it will be for the better. We must be open to that, I replied with a smile. Then added, I am sure there are other stories you have to tell me from your grandmother, stories about Mata. He laughed. I have many stories. You will hear them in good time. Facing me, he said, I feel that you also have love for Mata. My grandmother would be so happy about that. But you also must have stories. Many, I replied, and you will hear them in good time. The sun was quickly descending, and it was time for us to head back. But I didn't want to leave. By now, I was hanging on to his every word. One more story before we head back? I asked meekly. All right, he smiled. I will tell you a story that my father shared with me. He once told that he once told me that, unlike what people say, Maharani Sita never really left Ayodhya. Even after she retreated to the hermitage, her presence was still felt here, and every now and then people would catch sight of her. A number of years after the birth of Rajas Love and Kush, Maharaja Ram's minister and a handful of sages had gathered to talk about the new Gurukulam that was being established for the training of young boys. Everyone was seated, but there was an empty chair beside Sri Ram. My father was present, although he was still quite young. Because of his success, he was able to financially to assist one of the hermitages. Sri Ram sat listening to everyone and then he spoke. Everyone was surprised at his message, which was the need to set up a Gurukulam for girls. One by one, they shook their heads, unconvinced. Rarely did they raise objection to anything the Maharaja said or did. But about this matter, they were firm. They said it would bring disharmony to our society as it had not been the tradition. Suddenly, Sri Ram paused in the middle of the discussion and asked everyone to wait patiently before taking up the topic again. They waited and waited, but Sri Ram seemed in no hurry. My father guessed that Sri Ram was expecting another person, but he had no idea who it could be. All the required people were in attendance. An hour passed, and a few of those present began to stir. But Sri Ram hushed them and gently asked for patience. Suddenly, into their midst walked several of the rishis with Maharani Sita by their side, fully arrayed in her royal garments. She smiled at all the people in attendance and then took her seat beside Sri Ram, who then said he had asked her and the rishis to join them in person to explain why a Gurukulam for girls was needed. She first asked the rishis to speak. Rishi Vashishta said that had his wife not been fully educated in the sacred text, she would not have received the gift of Kamadhenu, who fed so many in times of need. Had his daughters not been educated, they could not have created the beautiful world they formed for their mother when she was in despair at the loss of her sons. Then sage Atri spoke and told them that had his wife not been educated in the sacred text, she could never have gained entrance to the celestial world and seen the Mandakini river, which she later brought to the earth to nourish the drought stricken region. Then sage Agastya concurred and explained that had his wife not been educated in the sacred text, she could not have held at bay the Rakshasas who ruled the forest in the south, threatening every hermitage. Then Sri Ram spoke. He said, had his wife not been educated in the sacred texts, perhaps she would not have been able to withstand the torment of Ravana during her time in Lanka. The sages were all quiet, but Sri Ram knew what was on their minds. He said, there are some traditions that should be maintained because they link us to the past and carry a universal truth. But such is the recitation of the Vedas and the sacred mantras. But other traditions must adapt as society and the human mind develop. Traditions that are no longer useful are like empty vessels. Clinging to them holds back the progress of society. You sages must have the discrimination to know the difference between what is essential and what can be discarded because it has outgrown its use. His words had an impact, and there was a visible change on the faces of many who were seated in that august hall. Then the Maharani spoke about the women sages who had taught her in Mithila and the many women sages who came to her aid in Lanka. She said, the wives of these great rishis offered me the fruit of their tapasya that was as intense as any male sage could perform. And this is what sustained me. This and the women of Ayodhya, the mothers who are the strength of the society. Our future mothers must receive an education for the sake of the whole community. She then said that Ayodhya was growing rapidly And unless the woman could keep up with the changes, the kingdom would not be able to advance. When she was done, not one voice opposed her. Although it took many years to establish the Gurukulam, there is now one for girls. Without Rajkumari Sita's intervention, this would not have been possible. Yes, I went to that Gurukulam as a child, I reminisced. I didn't share that I had left the training early because of my outburst when the teachers told the story of Maharani Sita. My grandmother said that Maharaja Ram could not have married an ordinary woman, and that no ordinary woman could have survived the long years in exile and captivity in Lanka. And when Mata retired to the hermitage for the birth of her children, my grandmother understood that there were reasons for this, reasons we couldn't understand. She trusted her implicitly, but she also told me that her presence never left Ayodhya. She was there for every yagna, every ritual sacrifice, and for every grand occasion. There was such reverence in his voice as he spoke that I almost felt I did when I was in the presence of Soma. We were quiet for a few minutes. I'm so grateful that you shared with me these stories. I almost feel as if I knew your grandmother. There will be much time for stories in the future, but now I'm afraid we must head back or your father will come looking for us. You are right, but I also have stories that you will later hear, I said with a smile. A few months back, my mother and I visited Mata's attendant Soma, who is very old but still living near the hermitage where Mata spent her last years. She told many stories of Mata and Maharaja Ram. His eyes opened wide. She's still alive? I nodded. I must go see her. I will take you. Let us speak with my father about it. My face must have been glowing when I reached home because my father took one look at me and said, "Can I assume that you like Ajit and are happy with the arrangement?" I greatly embarrassed that my face revealed what was in my heart. In that moment, all my anger towards my father melted away. It didn't matter anymore that he had withheld from me details of my meeting with Sri Ram. I had come to know what was said, and so there was no loss. There is something that you should know about his family, my father said. About his grandmother? My father nodded. He told me, I know about how she used to pray by the river. It is not just that. She was a woman greatly esteemed in the community. Her father was well established. Her husband died early and left her alone to raise their son, Ajit's father. But after the Maharaja and Maharani left for exile, she took off her beautiful clothing and ornaments and adopted a very simple dress. She moved from the family's large home to a simple abode and began giving everything she had away. She said she wanted to live as simply as the Maharaja and Maharani. She tried to mirror the life they had in exile. Ajit implied that they were poor and that she was a simple woman. My father laughed. That was his perception. A very humble woman would be a more accurate description. She became poor through her own choice, and that is how he remembers her. He doesn't know about her past, the life she gave up. Many women followed her and would join her by the river to pray for Rajakumari Sita. Your grandmother, my mother, was one of them. That is how I came to know the family. While the Maharani was abstaining from food during her time in Lanka, Ajit's grandmother was feeding many people in Ayodhya. She said that by feeding them, she was providing sustenance for the Maharani. But she herself took very little food that year, only what was necessary to keep her alive. The love she displayed helped to protect not only the Maharaja and Maharani, it also helped to protect Ayodhya because it enabled the people to stay connected to them. There were many times when our kingdom was threatened during the 14 years, and of course, it was the Maharaja's brothers and the army who protected us. But I know it was also the humble prayers of these quiet women who were doing their sadhana unnoticed by the rest of us. Humble, unseen, not wanting to be known. He paused as I took this all in. Ajit had described his grandmother to me as a very simple woman, but obviously she was much more. So, is that why you thought to arrange a marriage between our two families? I asked. He nodded, but then added, actually, it was our Maharaja who put the thought in my mind. When you were very young, before we could even conceive of a marriage for you, Sri Ram did that. Yes, when he came to visit our home one day toward the end of his life, you might not remember, but he blessed you at that time. Before taking his leave, he casually remarked that I might consider the youngest son of Sudama as a suitable husband for you. He said it so casually. He never instructed people, he just offered suggestions. This was the way he taught us. He wanted us to come to our own conclusions, but he would insert a thought in our minds. I thanked him for the counsel and forgot about it. But some years later, his words returned to me, and I spoke with Sudama, who was by then working with me in the administration. My father laughed. As soon as I mentioned this to Sudama, he told me that our Maharaja had suggested the very idea to him many years ago, and so that is how your marriage came to be. I was astounded to hear these words. In his last years, Sri Ram was fulfilling what Mata's intention had been. Did he do this with other people? I asked. Oh, yes, my father responded. He took an interest in the lives of so many, even as Ayodhya grew. People said that he learned this from Maharaja Janak. He put into effect on a large scale what Maharaja Janak had started in the smaller kingdom of Videha. My father continued, your mother has told me something of your meeting with Soma. I also would like to go meet her. Shall we plan another trip? I was bursting with joy at the thought. Can we take Ajit? I asked. I would like her to meet him. Of course, we will plan for the very near future. A few days later, my father came to tell me that he had set the date for our visit for the following week. But that got delayed. He set another date, and that also got delayed. I began to be impatient and suggested to my mother that we go without my father. But he was insistent about joining us. Finally, he set another date, and this time there was no delay. We embarked on the journey with 3 chariots. It was late the next day when we arrived. My father insisted on going first to pay his respects to the teachers of the hermitage. But I was impatient to see Soma, and so Ajit, my mother, and I headed in the direction of her hut. As we entered the forest path that led to her hut, we encountered an ascetic walking from the opposite direction, leaving the area where Soma lived. He stopped us. Are you looking for Soma? He asked. My mother nodded. You won't find her there, he said. Where is she? My mother asked. He smiled. My mother pressed him again. She has gone home, he replied softly. Home? My mother asked. Back to Mithila? At her age? No, lady, her true home. Seeing the perplexed look on our faces, he continued. It was a few days back when I heard Mata's voice calling me to hurry to Soma. I was far away from here, but came as fast as I could. As I entered the forest, I saw 2 beautiful women approaching me. They were lavishly dressed, and I thought it odd to find 2 women dressed that way in the forest. But I was in such a hurry to meet Soma that I didn't take note of it. They stopped when they reached me, and the woman who was leading the other one smiled and said, Putra, you won't find Soma there. I have already taken her. I pranamed to the woman, not realizing what I had just heard. I continued to hurry towards Soma's hut in great haste. I had not gone far at all when suddenly it hit me. That was Mata who had spoken to me. It was Mata and Soma I had seen. I turned and ran back to where they had been, but there was no sign of them. In their place, I found Soma's aged body lying on the ground with no life in it. Tears came into my eyes as he spoke, but he continued. I did not recognize our Mata, but then his face brightened and he added, she did not want me to recognize her, for I would have fallen at her feet and begged her to take me as well. But it is the will of Sri Ram and Mata that I remain to remind the world of the love that is their very being and to serve all in their name. With those words and with a pranam, he hurried off into the forest. My mother froze, unable to say anything. I burst into tears at the realization that Soma had died. When my mother could speak, she turned to Ajit and said in a hurried voice, go after the aesthetic, find him if you can, quickly. With these words, she sank to the ground. What is it, Ma? I asked between tears. Do you realize the great blessing we just had? I shook my head. All I could think of was the loss of Soma. Let's see if Ajit can find him. But it was no use. The aesthetic had disappeared. Ajit soon returned with the news that he was nowhere in sight. He was the one who came that last night to Soma's and brought fruit for all of us. Do you remember him? My mother asked me. I nodded, but that aesthetic was so tall he could barely fit in the doorway. This one was small. I don't think it was the same one, Ma. I replied in a controlled voice. He was the same. His size changes. I saw it that night and again today. I recognize him by the glow that emanates from his body, most unusual. That glow lit up the room that night, and today it outshone even the brilliance of Suryadev. Do you know who he was? Both Ajit and I shook our heads. I believe that was Hanuman. It is said that he comes in many forms, always changing so that people will recognize him only by the love he spreads, not by any one body. Did you feel the wave of love that spread over us as he hurried away? That is the sign of his presence. My mother wiped the tears that were still standing, staining my cheeks, and took hold of my hands. Sri Ram and Mata Sita gave you a great gift today, my dear. It was Soma's time to go, and we should rejoice with her. Whatever questions you had for her were meant to go unanswered. Instead of seeing Soma, they gave you darshan of Hanuman. They gave this to you both, perhaps as a wedding gift. Take the love that has spread over us and let it grow in your hearts. Ajit was deeply touched by what he had heard, but I was still suffering from the news of Soma's departure. I must go to her hut, I mumbled as I hurried down the path, leaving the two of them to reflect on the blessing we had all received. Once inside the hut, I sank down on the cushion that Soma used for her meditation. I only just found you, and now you're gone, I murmured in a choked voice. I was hoping you could help me remember, to remember just one moment when I was with her. A short time later, Ajit entered and found me seated. Feeling the pain in my heart, he sat quietly beside me and asked in a gentle voice, she meant a lot to you, didn't she? I can't explain my feelings, I replied quietly, and then added, she told me something about my past and I wanted to learn more. An awkward silence followed, and he asked, did I tell you the story about when Maharaja Ram came to our home and blessed me? I looked up at him, surprised by his words. He blessed you? Ajit nodded and started the story. Toward the end of his stay on earth, our Maharaja was visiting many of the homes, meeting the children. I suspect he was seeing to the future of Ayodhya. He came to see my father and asked to meet his children. We were three boys. My father presented us, and as he looked at us, he took me aside and looked at me for what seemed like a long time. Then he said to my father, "This child of yours must go into the administration. He will look after the forest. He has great love for the animals, and I trust that he will care for their welfare," he added. "Sita would be happy about that." I don't remember those words, but my father has recounted this story to me many times as if he wanted to etch it into my memory forever. He was quiet. After a few minutes, he began again in a reflective voice. "I don't remember much about our Maharaja, as this was my only meeting with him, but I do remember his eyes. They were unlike any eyes I have ever seen. He blessed all of us that day, and then he said to me, 'The animals will always befriend you. Never have any fear of them.'" Turning to my father, he told him that when he and Rajakumari Sita were traveling through the forest during their exile, Rajakumari Sita had no fear of any animal, and the animals often guided them to where they needed to go. After this, my father used to take me frequently into the forest so that I would gain a love for all the life there. But I already had this love. I think I was born with it. As I listened intently to him, his words soothed me, my sorrow. As I was later to learn, this was Ajit's way of chasing away any sadness that would come over me. All he had to do was turn the conversation to Mata or Sri Ram, and a subtle joy would enter my heart. "I think I was not meant to meet Soma again," I said. "Perhaps she told me everything I needed to know, and perhaps it is better not to return to the past. The past has given us the present," replied Ajit with a smile. "Whatever knowledge we gain in the past is somewhere logged in our memory. We should only look ahead of us, Anasuya. I believe that is what Sri Ram was doing when he visited our homes. He was sowing seeds for the future. What is to come will be his creation and his and Mata's." "I never want to forget that," I replied. "We must pledge not to let each other forget. This will be our vow to one another." I lived many happy years with my husband in Ayodhya. We had four daughters and no sons, and with the birth of each daughter, we brought her to the sacred Sarayu River and held her at the river bank, exclaiming, "Sarayu Devi, see Sita's daughters. Bless this child that she may serve her Mata." We watched the kingdom grow and flourish under the guidance of Maharaja's love and Kush. Ajit spent much of his time traveling the forest of the kingdom, making sure the expansion of human settlements was not encroaching on the territories of the animal kingdoms. For the most part, there was peace between humans and animals. One day, years later, as we found some time alone to walk by the river, I had the impulse to share with him what Soma had revealed. By now, we were both in our middle years. "Do you remember? After we first met, we went to try to see Soma, the aged attendant of Mata." I asked him. "How could I forget that day? A certain bond formed between us as we were seated in Soma's hut. Do you remember that?" He replied with a smile. I nodded. "The last words Soma spoke to me were about our past." "Our past?" he inquired. Again I nodded. "She told me that I had been a servant in the household of Maharaja Janak and came with Mata from Mithila after her marriage. She told me that you had also served in the household, caring for the animals, and that Mata was very fond of you because of your love for all the creatures." I saw the look of surprise on his face as I continued. "Then she told me that when we were young, serving in the household, you had wanted to marry me, but that my father had forbid it. He insisted I never marry. and so I never did. Because of that, I was able to follow Mata to Ayodhya. Then she told me that you and I should marry because it was Mata's desire. You are telling me this now? After so many years? He exclaimed. I don't know why I had never shared this before, but for some unknown reasons I had thought to keep this knowledge locked in my heart. Perhaps it was only for my ears I had reasoned. Did you not tell me that day that we should look to the future and not to the past? I asked him with a reassuring smile. And that is what I have done, Ajit. I am so very grateful that Mata and Sri Ram brought us together in this life. I think they arranged so much more than we know. His shock turned to joy and he said, Thank you, Anasuya, for sharing this now. It gives me great happiness and peace to know that I served in Mithila and I was known to Mata. But aren't we all known to her? Every being on earth? I think we cannot even imagine all that they have done and are doing. Someone once told me that Mata and Sri Ram would be even more active, more effective once they released their physical forms, that they would be able to do more. I heard that from someone, perhaps it was Soma. I just can't remember. The years passed, my daughters were well married, and Ajit had left his physical form. I was quite old when, for the last time, made my way down to the sacred Sarayu River, which was more crowded these days. Markets had sprung up, boatmen, salesmen, and women shoppers lined the shores. I found a quiet spot and sat down, leaning back against a tree. I watched the river for a few moments and then closed my eyes and let my mind wander. The words that Mata Sita had spoken to me that night I slept in Soma's hut returned. She had asked if I wanted to help create a new society. But what I have done, Mata? I silently asked her. I have only loved you. I have done nothing more. I felt myself drifting off. The darkness melted, and a scene appeared before me. A woman struggled in the river, fighting for life as the river engulfed her and washed her further and further from the shore. I felt the water pulling, as if it were I who was gasping for breath, as I was about to go under. I saw a very stately and a dignified man staring out at me from the river's edge. He seemed to be commanding the waves to release me, and they obeyed. The waves drew me closer to the shore until a final wave deposited me onto the sandy bank. He lifted my drenched and shaking body, and as I looked up at him, I felt such care and love emanate from him. The scene shifted. The woman and a few other women servants were standing by the side of a chariot. Their expressions were sad as they were preparing to leave the only home they had ever known. The same man who had rescued the woman from drowning now called them over and embraced them, saying, You too are my daughters. Then she appeared, Rajakumari Sita, youthful and ever so beautiful, dressed in her royal garments. Such joy flowed from her, and her beaming smile chased away any sadness the woman felt. I awoke with a start. That was me, I murmured. That was me, the woman drowning, the woman servant taking her leave. That was me, wanting to return to the scene to see that life once again. I closed my eyes, but nothing more revealed itself before my inner sight. A realization came to me that Mata had fulfilled my last desire to recall a memory of Mithila. Thank you, Mata, I whispered. I will remember this always. My mind drifted. How have I helped to build your society, Mata? I have done nothing but love my husband, love my children, try to help those in need. I heard a response. All I have ever asked of you is to love. That is how we create a new society, one based on love, his love, my love. These words slowly faded into the background, and I began to hear the quiet movement of my breath in and out. I heard the gentle lapping of the waves rising up and sinking down. My breath seemed to synchronize with the water as I listened to the gentle sounds coming from within and without, like a humming, ever so slight, until I could no longer distinguish between the rise of my breath and the rise of the waves. Was I my breath, or was I the waves? Or were we one? The sound became even ever more distant, ever fainter, but I continued to listen. In and out came my breath, in and out came the waves, smaller and less discernible and less frequent, until there was no more sound and no more breath. One more life falls away, but all that was learned, all that was loved continues, helping the frame and guide the new life that is to emerge. I look behind and see a long, long trail of lives stretching back to beyond what the mind can conceive. I look ahead and see how many more imprints need to fulfill themselves, flickers of light on the great ocean of being. Wow, that's all, friends. That's the end. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Friends, if there is anybody who wants to share, please go ahead and please share your experiences. Thank you, Flavi.
Hi, Madhu.
Hi, Meena.
Oh, so emotional. I'm feeling sad that this is finished and
Yeah.
also so much departure.
Mm.
Don't know. I don't have any words to say. I want to read it again. Maybe I'll go back and read or listen to
Yes,
all
now,
the sessions you have read. Yeah,
yes. Now you have a book, Meena.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm feeling heavy in my heart. Uh,
Mm. Yeah, I know it's like that. Yeah, there is so much that we have to take it in. That's so much that we have to learn from this book. Wow, what a wonderful, wonderful book.
I like the ending. It's love,
Yeah,
compassion.
it's love.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
spread the love. Yeah, yeah. Very
yes.
beautiful, beautiful
Very
ending.
beautiful. Thank you, Meena. Anybody else, friends? And friends, let us take all these books content and all these books teaching in these next 2 days. And after these 2 days, as I promised, I will be reading one more book, Buddha's Wife, which is again and very interesting book there, where we can we can learn so many things. Yeah. And friends, tomorrow, yes, Archana, please go ahead, Archana.
Yeah, hi Madhu.
Hi, Archana.
Finally it ended. I didn't want it to end, but yeah, it did end. Very good. But I noticed one thing, it was very funny thing. From the beginning, almost from the beginning, like since when Soma and Sita ji were like kind of grown up and on their
Mhm,
own,
mhm,
until uh, till when Soma left her body for the heavenly abode,
mhm.
there are always this mention of they used to cook, they used to serve, they used to cook,
Yeah,
they used to. As soon as
yeah,
she left, no mention of that sentence, and I really missed it. It was such
wow,
an important part of this whole story, as if they're
that's true.
making us just, like whoever comes to their place, you know.
Mm,
I think that is very important to have, like once your stomach is full, then your mind works and your everything, you're cool. I mean, everything, all the senses start working properly.
very
Uh,
true.
it was an integral part of the story, like wherever, whenever, like almost every, like maybe alternate page, you can see, they cooking and feeding either,
Right,
the acetics, you know,
right.
that was such a And I don't know why I related to that sentence a
Mm,
lot.
mm,
Uh, I love cooking and I feeding,
mm,
whatever it is. But these days, since the because of outward exposure that you need to make very extravagant food to please someone, I just personally got this maybe you can say thought or hint from this book. You can just make anything. I mean, I used to make anything and everything, but but even a plain dal chawal or even
right.
any and serving whoever comes to our house. Since coming to US, I've been a bit, not really, since last 2 3 years might be, a bit like kind of laid back. But now again, it has motivated this book. Ki jo bhi hai, jaise bhi hai, ghar pe will just feed the whoever comes to house. We should ask always, and we should always feed. And
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I'm
very true. And the simple food is very very tasty, and it's the love that we put into the food matters a lot. That nourishes them, like what Soma and Mata Sita did when they cook is they put so much of love into their food so that they can get healed because it is going. Yeah.
the meditation, they do meditation, they do this, they do that, then immediately they start cooking and serving so many people.
Okay.
That's awesome,
Very true.
really awesome. Yeah,
Very
that's the
true.
most track. And I miss when she
That's
was
great.
there
Yeah.
at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Funny though.
Mm.
Hi, Madhu. I
Yeah,
want to share one thing.
Yes. Yes,
Um,
Balaji.
See, from childhood onwards, I heard and I saw a lot of Ramayana stories.
Mm,
And after I came here to US in after marriage, over the years, saw a lot of I mean, we have so many books at home.
mm,
We have so many, I mean, Ramayana, different Ramayanas written by different
right.
people, but
Mm,
I never had any interest. Somehow, I always avoided reading Ramayana, thinking that Rama and others did not treat Sita properly.
mm,
In my mind, it was like that.
mm,
But after I heard about this through Saroja madam, on
mm,
PMC and about
mm,
this book, then I bought this book
mm,
on Amazon.
mm,
And then when I started reading, then I developed this interest. And after I listened to you completely, the whole story, I mean, it was so different how they portrayed Sita and
mm.
how in this book it revealed.
Very true. Wow. Very true.
But
Yes.
I mean, because of that, I mean, how come, people abandon the pregnant woman, into the forest,
Mm,
something like that. I was having all these feelings,
right.
but now they're all cleared, and now
Yes.
everything revealed.
Yeah, I know there's so many questions for the questions we had from the past, listening to the stories, Agni Pariksha, like the fire,
Yeah,
this thing. How can Sri Ram, ask Mata Sita to do that? Like
yeah,
he will never ask. That was such, they had such a love towards each other. And this book, when it is clearly said in this book, it's not about, Sri Ram asking, it's about, cleaning the Lanka, like, taking all the impurities and just burning it in the fire. Wow, what a
yeah,
beautiful beautiful explanation. And that answers these answers resonated with each and every one of us who have read this book or to listen this book. So
yeah, very true.
very true.
I mean, she every and also in the pictures, the way they portrayed when Sita returned to Ayodhya, and one washerman comments something. How can Sri Rama accepts after she stayed in Lanka, for such
Mm,
a long time,
mm, mm,
and that's how again she goes to for it's I mean these are all we hear all I mean we heard all these stories when we and then that's how I um, I developed this kind of not liking to read Ramayana.
mm, mm. Very. Yeah.
But I mean, she has written so well, like
Yes.
yeah, everything is crystal clear, and how everything from Sita um, showed the love and affection and her sacrifice, and
Mm.
also educating the girls
Right. Right. That's
in
really
scriptures. Yeah,
wonderful, actually. That's really
that's
wonderful
very,
for the thought that they have, the seed that they have sown, and and yes, I think we are in the beautiful times once again. We are. I think this book came at the right time to develop this divine feminine qualities in each one of us, no matter if we are a woman or a man. Whoever reads this book or whoever listens to this book, they will something will clicks in them, like we in this life maybe are female or a male, but maybe in the past lives I would have been a male, and now like male who is in this life, there might be a female in the previous times. So something clicks in us. So I think it's really a beautiful times that we are in, and this book is really a gift, as Patriji always says, that it's this Bible for the whole PSSM. This
yeah,
book,
it's
this
true.
one book is enough.
Actually, yesterday I forwarded to my daughter. She
Mm.
studied Sanskritam, and she did
Yes.
double degree, and in that South Asian Studies department. When she studied different. I mean, Ramayana and all this. And she wrote some essays about Sita,
Mm-hmm.
Draupadi, and all these characters.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday I forwarded saying that you should read this book of
Mm-hmm.
the version of Sita, then you will come to know.
Mm-hmm.
you know she said, Amma,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. I really would like to read.
That's great. That's great. I think this is what we have to. I think this book should be there in everyone's, bookshelf. And if at all we want to give somebody something, I recommend giving this book.
Yeah,
This is really a great gift to whoever it goes to. So
yeah,
yeah.
wonderful, thanks a
So
lot,
thank you,
for
Balaji.
narrating.
Yes, yes. Swapna, you want to say something?
Uh, I just wanted to say thank you, Madhu, for this wonderful, narration and beautiful book and beautiful memories. I wish I joined the earlier sessions too, but since I read the book and as I said, this is the most favorite book of mine.
Mm.
So I could catch up with the story, and
Yes.
also I felt extremely blissful, especially blissful meditations, and felt lot of energies,
Mm.
and especially in Navratri time I felt more energies,
Right.
and so blessed. And Dina Miriam, she's such a beautiful soul. I think as they mentioned that this is the time that the divine feminine, as you mentioned,
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
think that's the reason this thousand seeds of joy, Buddha's wife,
They
and
all
this book
are coming up.
all have come. Yeah, all are
That's
coming up
true.
now.
That's
So
true.
it's amazing, and the whole concept of how to perceive these ascended masters,
Mm.
has changed, because it was always like they are gods, and they are like very high at a different level, and
Mm.
you need to be like a seeker, just praying to them and asking them things. It's not that
Yeah.
they are actually very close to us.
That's
They are within us, and they are around us all the time, always in a thing to help.
right.
And it's just because of this perception that God is something up there, and you need to try to connect and all that. Those
Mm.
concepts are all like changed now. And as I said,
Correct.
like it feels so wonderful that the moment any thought, like yesterday when I was when you were mentioning that the moment you think about her, she would remove any negative thoughts.
Mm.
Sita
Mm.
had that power. So
Yes.
that is so important, especially when we come across negative thoughts. The moment we now we can think about her, we can ask
Mm.
her help.
Mm.
So it's so
Yeah.
beautiful how close they've come to us. Amazing.
Very true.
And thank you so
Yes.
much, Madhu, and I can't wait for Buddha's wife.
Thank you. Thank you,
Awesome.
Swapna.
And thank you everyone for sharing your experiences in this journey. And
Yes.
I learned a
Yes.
lot. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Swapna,
Bye.
and bye bye. And friends, as our friend Ramanji had requested me to make an audiobook of this untold story of Sita, I'm going to make it separately because I know this has a lot meditation along with the book, so I want to separate it, read it once more, and then make the audiobook. And there's one more thing, friends, that tomorrow at 9 a.m. Germany time, I know for the US people it is very difficult, but 9 a.m. Germany time, we will be having once again Akash Popli from India, who will be speaking about the teachings of ascended masters. This will be the part two session that we will be hearing from him, and what are the teachings of ascended masters, who are ascended masters. So last time he took us into a very deep knowing of who they are and explaining about few ascended masters. So if that interests you, friends, it will be on the same Zoom link. Please do join us at 9 a.m. Germany time, which is at 12:30 p.m. India time. And one more thing, friends, that from tomorrow evening, the timings might change because um, there is like the the, the change in the timings,
Yeah,
like
daylight.
daylight, yeah, daylight saving timings. So yeah, from tomorrow it will be changed. It will be at 6 p.m. Germany time, but I think it will be very difficult for our Indian friends to join us because it will be like
I wonder.
10:30.
Yeah.
It will be 10:30 for them. but but we make sure that on the weekends we change the timings and move a little bit ahead so that our friends from India can also join. Yeah. So that's all for today, friends, and please do join us tomorrow for both the sessions, morning and evening. And one more request that since we all have heard this book, Untold Story of Sita, there might be something that have touched you. I want you to write about that experience that have touched you in your words in the group. So in our Beam family group, in the WhatsApp group. So it will be really, really helpful and to really implement and to really listen to what you have gone through and to get really inspired. So that's a small request I want you to make. It just takes 5 minutes. Just close your eyes, reflect upon what is your best part of the book, and please write it out there. Yeah.
Sure.
So so
I
thank
wanted, yeah, I wanted to ask one question, Madhu.
yes.
Uh,
You know.
from this book, when I'm sharing something to
Mhm,
say parents or any elders,
mhm,
if I
mhm.
say, "Oh, this is not the story what we keep heard all these years. This is
Yes.
something different, like
Mhm,
about Ahalya or
mhm.
anything." If I share on a daily basis, they are not believing. How do you believe this author? Because we have been listening these stories from past
Right.
generations about Ram. How do I convince them?
Hey,
Uh,
you don't need to convince them, Mina, because it is very difficult to change their patterns. But as I told you the other day as well, but we can keep telling stories. Ma, this is or Papa, this is the side. Like maybe you can just listen. It's very nice. Like whether you take it or not, it is your choice. But do listen to this story. You say that. That's it. That is what you have to do. And now I think this Telugu book had been released, Sita
yeah,
Yanam.
yeah,
So that is what we can gift our parents or our elders, so that they can just once go through that book. I think once they go through that book, like we also had the same limiting beliefs before we took this book. Like
yeah,
how
yeah.
is that possible? But once we got in, then only we have understood that wow. So I think they don't know it, so that's why they confine themselves. But once they read, or once we share them the stories, I think they will resonate with it, because that's the truth, isn't it?
I
So the
think it's
truth,
yeah, it's with
yes,
their beliefs. How do you believe this author if she has
yes.
written that? So many
Mm.
people write many things. How
Yes,
can
I
you
know.
say
I
that?
know many people have these questions that, like the author is a foreigner. How does she know
Mm,
about the Indian mythology, or how can she know about the Rama? And all? I know many people have questions. See, we being Indians, and we know that there are so many past lives that we had, and it like it's very very easy to, if we understand this thing, the more we think too much, we complicate it. So I think that the only thing that you have to do, Mina, is to just to share them the stories. You tell to them, I've read this, I want to just tell the story.
Yeah,
Just
that day,
listen.
that day I was telling you about Ahalya and all. She's not believing. No, that's not because
No, you
it's
should
been.
not. You should not tell them just one part of the story. You know,
Mm,
you should tell them day by day. As I've read you all,
mm,
every day. That's a process. That's how the
mm.
process is. Like it's not just you tell them that this is what happened. Then it won't happen like that.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just that they have to be like, they are just taking the baby steps. Now we have to hold their hands and we have to take them to the light. So that
yeah,
is our responsibility now. So just be patient and share each and every story. We have to give some time to our parents now to break that limited belief systems that they have been carrying, so that they can be free. They can be free of the clutches that they've been put into. So yeah,
yeah,
please
yeah.
tell these stories to your children, and please tell these stories to your parents and grandparents, every day, one by one story by one story. There is so much time. Yeah.
True, true. Thank you, Mother.
So thank you, Minna. So with this, friends, let us close the session, and my deepest gratitude to Dena Maria Madam, and also to Mata Sita, Sri Ram, and all the characters, and especially our beautiful Vayuputra Hanuman. So how amazing he is! He's an immortal soul, one of my favorite ones. So nams to all the characters, all the for their teachings in that book, and let us take the good memories from the book, and we will again see each other tomorrow. Have a lovely day, a lovely evening, and a lovely night, friends. Namaste to all.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Mother.
much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.